And hello, everyone. All about the gyro here. Welcome to episode 8 of an iRacer Goes Trucking. In this episode, we're going to continue to open up the country of Latvia as we continue to work toward the Baltic Tourist Achievement. As you see here, we have a load selected from Valmiera to Ventspils. As I click in the session, you'll hear the music kick in. Ventspils. So let's get started. Hope all of you are well. I am just on the tail end of recovering from the flu. So today, the sinuses and all that are having lots of fun, icky times, and the body is pitching a little bit of a conniption, but at least it's happening before the move. So let's go ahead and get this started here. We are in one of the older Mercedes here. Let's recognize the dials. And so, yeah, got a little bit more boxes packed up. I still got a little bit to go, so I need to start moving stuff over there, and that's going to happen on Friday. So this video, I wanted to discuss a couple things here. So first is a very interesting part, and that is iRacing has not yet given any hints to what Season 2 is going to entail. Which you figure, after all the excitement that led with the Mercedes tie-up, hype was definitely real. But we haven't heard anything about tracks coming to the service yet at the time of recording. Key disclaimer, at the time of recording. There's no way my luck. Watch iRacer, iRacing make a liar out of me for not putting that disclaimer in otherwise. And the other bit is we really haven't heard anything about any possible cars coming. So let's discuss the cars that we know and the cars that are rumored, plus any other facts that come to mind readily. So we know that there have been some dirt scans coming, and the dirt community definitely this little shortcut road here. This is an actual business, but it's not having us go through the normal paved road here. So interesting route choice by the GPS. So what do we know? We know about the dirt. They're working on expanding dirt. we know they've been working with the next-gen car NASCAR. They've been issuing the changes thereof. And so that leaves dirt road and paved road. So I don't know too much about the dirt road situation. I know a couple of builds ago they really made it an effort to get that built up with the new addition of, wow, that is thunder that you hear in the audio. Now we're back on either, this looks like gravel. I was going to say cobble, but this looks like gravel. So as I was saying, I don't know too much about what's going on in dirt road. So I'd be curious to see if they bring some additional content to that. That would definitely help that series. And of course the main thrust of the channel is paved road, and that's where the majority of my comments are going to be. So here's what we know for sure. We know Brazilian stock cars are coming. Question is when. iRacing has gone ahead and have announced the iRacing Grand Prix Tour or World Series. I forgot what name they gave it exactly. But they have made it to where it's a lower license series than A. Now, correct me if I'm wrong out there. My understanding was it was D 4.00 or higher. Like they really lowered the threshold. And I think it's for one reason and one reason only. It's to maximize participation. People have discovered that the Formula One car, it's the real thing, and it is tough to drive. It is a beast of a car, and if you don't have the prerequisites, you're going to get caught out. And so I think this is iRacing's way of saying we don't want this series to die like we've let others die. Looking at you, IR01, great car. The IR01, but that is pretty much a dead series compared vis-a-vis to the other series. So, due to that, I think this is a very clear, intentional attempt to prevent the malaise of lack of interest. So, lower the bar and allow everyone in. Problem you're going to have, though, is people are going to make the wrong derivation. And they're going to go, oh, great, license don't mean anything, etc., etc. Well, let's use a little logic, shall we? A D 4.00 license is equivalent to, what, a C 3.0 license, which means it's a B 2.0 license and A 1.0 license. if I got my ratios right. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. Down in the comments below. Correct me if I have misunderstood that. But if I have understood that correctly, license level, because of the way our license system is, and that is I may go down the rabbit hole of this video of what I think the license system should be. They're definitely making it appealing to anyone and everyone who's willing to buy the car in the tracks. I'm going to see if this truck gets over. I'm going to yield just in case. That way I don't get hammered. So, let me turn off the windshield wipers. Don't need those anymore. So, they're definitely trying to make sure this series maintains interest. Do not be surprised if part of that is contractual between Mercedes-Benz, who want to showcase their car and the company by proxy, to as many participants as possible. And that's the long and short of it. So that's the one blatant reason they've done it. But now I'm going to give you a second one. To me, the second reason why they've done this is, call this a litmus test. It is well known in the iRacing community that the Formula 3 series is not a very good series in terms of driving standards. I would advocate that Formula 3 is one of the worst, especially in open wheel. Slow my butt down here. It's one of the worst. So because of that, you're now going to put the major event. This is going to be a major event. This is going to be heavily hyped. It's going to be heavily advertised. So on and so forth. And I think what this comes down to is not license level, but quite correctly skill level. Because here's one of the hard truths, and I have learned this from racing in the Sunday Night Skippy League. So when I did Nordschleife, this really popped out to me between the different levels of skill. Let's use 1500 as our metric. So at the beginning of the season, a 1500 iRating driver was higher than 2/3 of all the accounts on iRacing. You're automatically better than 2/3. And what you notice is there is a trend line to hover between about 1,000 and 1,100. That seems to be the trend line in the road. When it comes to skill level. So at the time of recording, I am 1520, and that will be the rating I end the season with. I may get busted here. Might get busted, because there's radar. Hey! Winning! Alright, things are going our way so far with this run. So, because of that, if you place a 1500 that only does Skippy, you place a 1500 like myself that does only GT3, obviously, the argument would be if you switch their discipline. So the GT3 driver like myself racing Skippies and the Skippy driver racing GT3, you would instantly lose iRating because they have to, in essence, re-educate themselves from the beginning on how to drive a car. So by lowering it, now you are not diluting the competition to just those that drive this car as one of their primary cars. You're actually going to see who has legitimate skill. And I think you're going to see some surprises. You're going to have the regular culprits, of course. But I think you're going to have some folks that are not A-licensed. Well, let's say they're 2,000 skill rated. I've seen some D-licensed drivers that are almost 3,000. They're unicorns, but they do exist. I think you're going to see a nice uptake because there's going to be participation. Let's see who's really got the chops to do this. So that in itself may be a driving reason why we haven't heard much about Season 2 is they're trying to give appropriate focus to what is going to be a marquee event. Of course, you got the Porsche Cup All-Stars thing, with the celebrities. That's been going on. You also have a bunch of endurance races as well. 12 Hours of Sebring is in just over 3 weeks' time. So that's going to be a very telling event as well. So, as I've mentioned, Brazilian stock cars, we know they have the license, we just don't know when they're going to be released. My understanding is that is supposed to be a C license series. So C license, most diverse license in the game, is now about to get even more diverse. You also have the 3rd gen supercar from Australia will be due sometime in iRacing. Very likely not Season 2, but I could see Season 4. Once they get a scan done and get it configured correctly, I could easily see that. And so because of that, a lot of people are, it's kind of like the fear of missing out syndrome, but I would not worry. I think you'll hear an announcement or two in the next few days, but understand, keep your expectations low. I think this is going to be, and it's very natural in the IT world, you have releases that are stability releases, and that is what I'm hoping Season 2 is, because quite frankly, iRacing is very buggy right now. Beta UI has got a lot of problems. There's been some telemetry concerns. There have been rendering concerns. We still have the AMD things that are still being worked on. I'm okay with this being underwhelming in content, but overwhelming in stability. If the sim is much more stable, where the netcode, which has been awful second half of the season, awful. If they figure out what has caused it, get that dialed in, that will make me very happy. But stability isn't just in the code, it's also in the stewarding and officiating. That's the other thing I hope starting in Season 2 that iRacing really looks at and addresses. The driving standards have been very, very poor. And what is happening is, and I have seen it enough to make a claim, as we're here in Ventusfields, is the driving standards. What is happening is the concept of bump and run is now quite prevalent in a lot of races that are not open wheel. And I'm looking at GT3, GT4. And we are now halfway in our Baltic Tourists, 18 to 35. Excellent. And what I mean by the bump and run is 2 cars will be driving close proximity, one in the draft. And what will happen is, and I've seen it quite a bit, the car behind is frustrated because they can't get past that car. And so what happens is they decide to kind of nudge the bumper and shove the lead car out, or just push them wide enough and they get through, and they're willing to take the 4X for it. Now, to me, that is not appropriate racecraft. It is not NASCAR. It is road racing. And in quite a few series over in Europe, if you did that, you're getting pitted with either a stop and go penalty, or in the next race you get a sanction, whether it's a place drop or qualifying ban or something of that nature. Okay. Now, obviously in iRacing, the place drop and qualifying ban doesn't happen, but there is a way to stop the bump and run. And here's what I would suggest to iRacing, who, hey, iRacing is still the best racing sim in the world, hands down, don't at me. It still is. Period. Now, the others are trying to get better, but iRacing is still top dog. I don't care what anyone says. Look at the incident system and keep the zero fault system, because the zero fault system is not perfect, but it is a lot better than trying to assign fault. And here's what I would do. I would make one change. Just one change. If there is a rear ending, what happens right now under the current system is the offending car gets a 4X, and the quote-unquote victim car, for lack of a better language, also gets 4X. Let's see here. I think it's right here. Yes, it is. What I would like to advocate is keep it the same 8x of incidents. But what I would suggest is the non-offending car, and you could easily do this because of the way detection and all that works. And hey, we get promoted. Let's see here. So now, if we open up just in time, notice big experience bonus. So we're going to open that one up. And let's do a second job here for this episode. As you see, we have these two left here, and then we can get into Lithuania. And I'll finish my thought here once I pick my... Let's see, do I need to go to... Yes, I do. Let's try some forklifts. Down to... Daugavpils. All right. Now, let's see here. Let me get my act together here. All right, we got our lights on. Now we got to get out of here. So, keep it the same 8x, but the non-offending car, like I said, this should be easy to determine through whatever, and I'm going to use hit detection, but you get the idea. Whatever way iRacing determines the polygons, whatever. Non-offending car should get 2x. The offending car behind should get 6x. So still assign the same net, which is 8x. But divided unequally. And now what happens is you solve the bump and run. You also would have a little bit of a deterrence on dive bombing, because now if someone goes in and sends it because they want to yeet it, if they get it wrong, it's 6x. And now disqualifications happen easier, drive-throughs happen easier if you're in that series, so on and so forth. So that's my one suggestion, that I would say, hey, keep the zero fault system. It works. Over the long run, it works. Because now what happens is with 6x, the other thing you do is, because of the way it calculates, and I think it's 1,000 corners, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's 1,000 corners, is if there's a pattern of 6x, your safety rating is going to get hammered. It's going to force you to drive more safely. Now, we're not going to make that light. I'm going to add a caveat. If it is a 0x, so sometimes you get like 0x becomes 1x or 2x or 4x. If it is 0x situation, you could never get a 6x. That's unduly punitive to those who have netcode or distance concerns of the server. You can program that in. The 0x, you can only max out at 4x for an incident, for contact. So that's my suggestion, and I think you would see, if you were driving along, we're going to pick Spa because, hey, it's La Source, it's the hairpin, it's what happens. You're not going to yeet it in there too hard, because that's 6x. It's rough. And with the way that safety rating is calculating, corners per incident and all that, if you are a borderline A or B license, I think this truck, I'm just going to let this truck go by. We'll use a turn signal. Ooh, wow. Good thing I lifted. Oofda. you would get a little bit more equity. And now, if you were the victim card, it's like, okay, I got 2x for that. You know, because let's say you get full-blown rear-ended, sometimes you inadvertently cause the rear end, so you have to have a little bit of, you should have a little bit of ownership. But if you, but it's a more equitable solution, I feel. 6x for a pure rear end. And the benefit of the doubt, you know, if there is any doubt, like, you know, if you come in at an angle, like a 45-degree angle or worse, right, it just becomes 4x. But I think you can program that in there to where it would disenfranchise the dive bombing that occurs a lot, especially in your sprint series. And I think you would get better racing from it. So that's my 2 cents on that, because the license system itself, yes, there does need to be some alterations to it. Like I said, I'll save that for another video, because that's its own video. But if you just make that little bit of tweak, I'll be okay with it. Now, part of what's driving this is also people are raising keen about the track limits at Silverstone and Imola. I have no problem with tightening the track limits. Just drive more precisely. You know, it's not a case of see road, drive on road. It's the line has to be respected. The Imola track limits, they're tough. They are very, very tough. And Daniel Gray 10, our beloved Aussie streamer, actually had a pretty good idea, and that is GT3 limits versus Formula 1 limits. It's not a bad idea. That's something I could possibly get behind. When it comes to that. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts on that. But my take on it is, make that one tweak and now some of the racing will change, because if you are now driving normally and now you got to get by someone, that's 6x looms. That 6x kind of goes, okay, let's say you're on 9 to, actually, let's say 8, 9, or 10 incidents. We'll use Spa, for example. You set up an overtake to head into Le Combe and you rear end someone. You are now at 14, 15, 16. Your safety rating is going to take a hit, because realize that 6x is not back in the history where there's a little bit of help because of time. It's right there in front. It's going to hurt you. You now rear end someone. Now, I know what some of you are going to say. What happens if someone blocks? Well, if you try to overtake and someone blocks to try to induce you to do 6x, that's not only a protest, that's not only a successful protest. I would consider that unsportsmanlike driving and is immediately bannable. Like, you sit someone down and say, don't do this, and here's why. Like, you will deter that behavior. Because the first time someone decides to just throw a block, especially if they're trying to induce a 6x, the sim should be able to sense a sudden movement there. So there may be a case where you can program where it's no longer 2x, 6x, it now becomes 4x, 4x. But oh yeah, that's not even a warning. That is we're sitting you down for a week. First offense, don't do this. And so yes, that's the first half of the stewarding that I hope changes is the way that they assess incidents. But the other part that I would suggest is the fact that with license demotions, it should be harder to regain your license. Like if you get demoted, it's still relatively straightforward to regain it. People have learned how to, in essence, game the system. And that is, they look for a Le Mans or a Nürburgring race, and they go race it, and they pump their safety rating back up. Therefore, I would be inclined no longer do 4 races to get back. No, make it harder. And it should be based on license. To give you an example, if you get a double demotion, so here's what I mean by that. There is a streamer right now. She is in danger of being delicensed. She started the season, I believe, at D license. So if you get a double demotion, let me slow down here, during the season, that means not only have you not driven safely, but you haven't learned the lessons that you need to learn to go back up. Thus, double demotions, and they do happen from time to time, I would force that person, because you can go from A to C as a double demotion, E to D as a double demotion. So I would make this a ubiquitous rule. Any double demotion in the same season, you start the next season, regardless of what happens, you start at D level 2.0. That is where you start. Unless you are able to recover both of your licenses within the same season. So let's say you go from B to D and you're trying to get back to B. Okay, I will grant you the opportunity to grind to get both of them back. But to get both of them back means often you're starting at, let's say, D 1.8 or 2.0, you have to get to 4.0 twice. That is not easy. That's my other suggestion. Double demotions, unless you can recover it, you start at D2 2.0 next season. And so in a different video, I'll talk about how I want to add additional races for the licenses. As in, the higher license you achieve, the more racing you need to do before. 4 races is not enough. There needs to be a little bit longer progression. So, anyway, those are my 2 ideas to iRacing. We'll see what they come up with, but I think that would improve the racing, the service. It would take away a little bit of the toxicity. Because, yeah, voice chans and chat bans are now starting to become badges of honor to some people. In my mind, starting with Season 2, if you receive a fresh chat ban or voice ban, you should no longer be a member of good standing. As in, you cannot promote from your current license level. You cannot participate in special events of any kind. So if you wanted to do endurance racing and you got a voice or chat ban, you can't participate because you're not a member of good standing. Like I said, fresh ones, because we all know there are some voice and chat bans out there that should not be happening. We all know that. All right, we're here. Let's go ahead and we'll take the skip because we just want to move it along here. And we'll have a quick look at the map and we'll talk about the next episode, episode 9, I think. So right now, we've covered all of the Russian Federation. We've covered all of the Republic of Estonia. And if you look, we only have Resigne to do. And then we will be complete with Latvia. And then we can start heading into the country of Lithuania. So its capital is Vilnius. Right down here. Anyway, my friends, as I tab out of the sim, you'll hear the music fade away. As always, my friends, take care of yourself. Take care of one another. God bless.